Hey, it's Julie Slater from 88.5 The SoCal Sound, midday host and also music director. Today I am joined by someone who's kind of a big deal, by the way, Chris. Grammy nominated composer, arranger, and conductor. Going to be doing so. We are based on the CSUN campus, and right across the way is the Sorraya, and you've got a show coming up. Please welcome Chris Walden. Welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me, Julie. My pleasure.
So you recently started the Pacific Jazz Orchestra, and you guys have a show coming up on May 11th. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it? You have a special performer singing with you?
Yeah, I'll this show at May 11 at the Soraya. This show is our featured guest artist is Aaron Tveit, who's a Broadway musical star. He also stars in TV. He stars in the show Schmigadoon, but he did star on Broadway in Moulin Rouge and Sweeney Todd, amongst others. And he's just a great singer, great performer, and a really great guy. And it's going to be a fantastic evening of some known Broadway tunes, but also some things off the beaten path. We're going to have some surprises he'll be singing. So I think it's going to be an enjoyable evening, not only for hardcore Broadway fans, but for people who like this kind of music and like jazz and like orchestral music as well.
So tell me about how long have you had the Pacific Jazz Orchestra? It's something pretty new for you, right?
Correct. So the Pacific Jazz Orchestra, I had this idea to start about a couple years ago. Um, After I have been writing music and arrangements and film scores for other people for 30 something years, I did find that it's time to kind of pursue my own musical vision. And that's why I came up with this sort of this hybrid instrumentation, a jazz orchestra, which is not a symphony orchestra. A symphony orchestra is comprised of 80 people, but none of them play saxophone. And a jazz big band has saxophones and trumpets and trombones and rhythm instruments, but no strings. So I came up with this kind of concept to combine both of these genres and instrumentations and form the 40-piece Pacific Jazz Orchestra. And with this, we're able to play jazz, but also beyond jazz, other genres and kinds of music. So, and present a concert program with about a handful of concerts throughout a season, spread out over a few venues in Los Angeles, and Soraya being one of them.
I saw a clip on social media that you had covered Leve, a song that we play on the station from the start. So how did that all come about?
That I found her really interesting when she appeared on the scene, and she does music that's obviously rooted in jazz. And since we're a jazz orchestra, I just took a stab at it, and I kind of took like 16 bars out of one of her songs and did an instrumental cover. And we at one of our rehearsals before the show, I just videotaped it real quick and we put it on social media.
What do you think is special about her? She's really blowing up. I know she played the Ford here in LA and she's going to be playing with the
Yeah.
LA Phil as well. Like what do you think is her magic?
I
If
think
you have
her
an
magic
opinion.
is, yes, I do. I think her magic is sort of bringing like old school jazz and bossa nova approaches to a new audience and combines it with her more contemporary aesthetic and her sound. And she sounds like a really young and contemporary singer, and kind of combining that, I think, is really interesting. And suddenly people become interested in like 60s bossa nova that really didn't know before what that was, who Antonio Carlos Jobim, for example, was. So I think she's bridging a gap there very nicely.
I read an article with her that she had said that she wrote this album in hopes to bring a new generation to jazz. And I feel like that's kind of I saw a clip of your Pacific Jazz Orchestra that you guys are trying to do the same thing. And what how do you think you're going to achieve all that? Like bringing in different kind of mixing, I guess not just being one type of jazz, but mixing
Correct.
in different artists.
I think the key for this is like crossover projects and symbiosis between different styles of genres. Um and I think Leve is doing a great job at that, kind of mixing influences from from multiple eras as well. And we're kind of similarly on the orchestral level trying to do that as well. And we're also doing this with bringing in guest artists that you wouldn't think necessarily of jazz artists, but we then with the Pacific Jazz Orchestra applying our jazz aesthetic to their songs and create new arrangements, and create and use and use it that way.
And you just did a show with Rufus Wainwright, right?
Correct. That's a very good example. Rufus
Yeah.
Wainwright, you would not necessarily think of a jazz artist per se, but he wanted to explore the songs of Kurt Weill, this German composer from the 1920s and 30s and 40s, who worked first in Berlin, Germany, and then emigrated to the US and worked on Broadway. And even his music is not really jazz, but it had jazz influences because it was written in the 20s and 30s. And then Rufus singing it was, yeah, there already you have like two or three kind of elements coming together, putting in a pot and stirring it over, and something new comes out of it.
Are there any contemporary, I guess I call it contemporary jazz musicians that you love? I recently saw Kamasi Washington, always puts on such a great show.
He's fantastic, yeah.
I sent you this. I love the album from the Sorcerers, a band from Leeds. I really dig
Yeah.
them. Anybody
Really, I
else?
wasn't really aware of them much, but I've listened to it. It's really, really cool stuff they do.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and yes, I just love it. So it's fun.
Yeah.
So we're really like a rock station, but I like to. So I'm also trying to sort of influence a little jazz
Yeah.
onto the station. Anybody? So when you were growing up, what you seem like someone. So your resume is very extensive. You've worked with so many different artists, and just talking about some of them that we play on our own station, like Paul McCartney. Tell me what did you do with Paul McCartney? I just happened to see him on your long list of people you've worked with.
I worked on an album with Paul McCartney where he explored a little bit more like jazz standards, but
Hmm.
he wanted to record jazz standards that not that much known, more like the forgotten gems. I think that's what his goal was. The album was called Kisses on the Bottom. It was like 12, 15 years ago, I think. And I worked on this album together with Diana Krall because I was at the time Diana Krall's music director, and Paul wanted to do an album that sounds like a Diana Krall record. So he went to Diana Krall and asked her to produce this album. And I came in with Diana's team to work on that Paul McCartney album.
And did you play? I think I saw a headline. Did you play the Hollywood Bowl with her when she played
I
that?
played with the Hollywood Bowl with Diana Krall with the LA Phil. Yeah, I was for a few years. I was on the road with Diana as her conductor, and amongst other shows, we also played the Hollywood Bowl. Yes.
You have such an interesting background. How do you? I'm like, how do you have time to now run your own orchestra?
That's a good question. I don't, but I really wanted to do this. And it may become already actually sort of has become my main focus, which kind of forces me or allows me to decline other projects and focus on this one. And I'm completely happy with that.
Yeah, that's nice. What about? I also have Neil Young, Stevie Wonder, Elvis Costello, Sheryl Crow. Do you just work, just do little tidbits on their records, or are you part of their whole albums, or
It depends. I mean, it's what did you just mention?
Neil Young,
Neil,
Stevie
Neil Young,
Wonder,
I did
Elvis
a whole.
Costello?
I with Neil Young, I did a whole album. The album was called Storytone. Um, was produced by Nico Bolas, and he wanted to do an orchestral album, so I did this whole album with him. Then with Stevie Wonder, just over the years, arranging a song here and there for a TV appearance of his. Same with Sheryl Crow, but yeah, but there are artists who I've have a long-standing relationship with and done tons of records. Michael Bublé being one of them, or Christopher Cross, or and then there are other artists who I just do a little bit for.
How early on did you start playing music as a child?
I started playing the recorder flute when I was 4 years old. My mother is um, a singer. She's a choir singer specializing in early Baroque and Renaissance music. And I was born and raised in Hamburg, Germany. And so I could read and write music before I could read books.
Wow.
And so I was kind of grew up with music early on, and I remember from very early on musicians coming to our house for rehearsals with my mom, and bringing these historic early Baroque and Renaissance instruments. And I was fascinated by these, looking at these instruments, and these musicians would let me try it out. So I think that sparked my fascination with different kinds of instruments, and then led ultimately also my desire to write for these instruments. I then learned piano and then trumpet, and I think I became interested in jazz at the age of 7 or 8, as sort of as a rebellion against my mother, to kind of break out of this classical world of Renaissance and Baroque music. And I became interested in jazz. And not that my mother had anything against jazz, it's just that she didn't know anything about jazz, and that was
Right.
a domain I
You
would own
found
to
your own
myself.
way, your own thing. Yeah.
Exactly. I had did my own thing, and she, I mean, she was supportive of me pursuing my own path. So
That's really great. I love it. All right, so you're going to be playing at the Soraya Pacific Jazz Orchestra, and you're going to be with Tony Award-winning Broadway and television star Aaron Tveit. Is it that's how you pronounce it? Tveit?
Tveit,
Tveit.
Tveit.
Aaron Tveit. The Soraya, you can buy tickets if you'd like to go on their website, thesoraya.org. I just want to thank you so much, Chris Walden, for popping by. Really, you have such an interesting background, and you've worked in so many different arenas, television, film. I know we haven't even talked about you have arranged music for the Oscars.
Yeah.
So good luck with the Pacific Jazz Orchestra. Really
Thank
exciting
you.
stuff.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks for having me.